Thank you so very much for being here with us.
My pleasure, Laura, for sure. I appreciate having me.
Rob, like I was telling everybody earlier, you're like the rock star in the inventors world. So, I mean, you can imagine how excited we are, to have you on here. And
No
your
pressure.
your whole story is just so phenomenal. So, what might be really cool is to just really kind of let us know where were you at in life? I mean, how did you get started with with all of this?
Well, first of all, thank you, everybody, for coming. And I don't usually get to talk to a bunch of other inventors. So this is going to be fun. So I can't wait to hear the questions and hear from you guys. So that'll be great. Well, Pictionary started long before I invented Pictionary. I say created Pictionary. I didn't wake up wanting to be an inventor, creator of a board game. It was just something that happened. It started when I was in college, and my father got fired from his job. And I'm a sophomore. I'm 21 years old, 20 years old, and my life is planned out for me. I'm going to be an executive like him, and I'm going to do all these cool things with business. But when he gets fired, the first thing that goes through my mind is, if he can get fired, I can get fired. I'm not going to let anybody have control of my life. And that was what started me on the path to being an entrepreneur. It was like, I've got to be my own boss. And so with that backdrop, I was going to be open. I mean, again, I wasn't going to be an inventor. I didn't know what it would be, but I was going to be present. I was going to be open, and I was going to wait for my opportunity. Fast forward, I graduate from college. I'm 22 years old, and I move in with a couple of buddies. And one of them one night said, "Do you want to play a game of charades on paper?" Sure. We sketch words out of the dictionary. And, oh,
See, I told you I found some.
wow. Yeah, I've got a story. That's a great, I'll tell that story in a little bit. Uh, And so the opportunity wasn't to create a game, it was just to have fun. So we're up all night playing this silly game, sketching words out of the dictionary. And I think, this would make a good board game. And that was it. So I still didn't do anything, but the mindset and the idea was in my mind. And so a couple of years later, I started thinking about it again. And I knew I had to solve one problem. And that was, how do I get words into a game? That was the physical thing I had to overcome. Anybody remember Trivial Pursuit?
Yeah.
Of course. So did I. So I look at Trivial Pursuit. I look at the card. And guess what's on cards? Printed words. And that's my aha moment. I'm going, okay, I know how to make Pictionary now. I'm going to put words on cards. Then I didn't do anything because I panicked, right? You guys have this idea. Everybody's got ideas. But I just kept telling myself, I'm 23. I'm just a waiter. I don't have the skills. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. So I didn't do anything. I panicked. So as I said, I took a pause. I just got it out of my mind. I mean, for me, that's part of my creative process. And I didn't know that at the time. Part of my creative process is getting away, because when I get overly stimulated, I can't get out of my head. And so I got out of my head, came back to it, and without overthinking, I took the first smallest step. Pad of paper, a dictionary, and a pencil. In the backyard, opened it up, wrote down the first word for Pictionary that made sense, and the word was, anybody know? Aardvark, right? That was it. I wrote down the word aardvark. But here's the deal. Why that was so important. Yeah, it was just one word. But in that moment, I was no longer a waiter. I was a game inventor, right? That was the mind shift. I mean, when you're inventing, when I'm creating, I just have to tell myself, this is who I am and this is what's going on. So I put it together. I got my act together. I do the word list. 5,116 words is what I wound up writing down. I didn't self-edit. I didn't say this word makes sense, this doesn't make sense. Just 5,016. And it was Trivial Pursuit had 6,000 questions. So that was kind of my basis for that number. Then, I mean, so now I'm an inventor. I've got to play test the game. So how many of you, you have this idea, and you guys are inventors, I love this. And then you go, okay, this would be great. But you have to actually test it out. So back then, to test it out, we couldn't go online. This is 1984. No internet. I couldn't email my friends. Here's a sample of the game. Here's some rules. What do you think? It's like I physically typed up the rules. Didn't have a printer. I literally typed them up, and I play tested the game. Pad of paper, pencil. The original was a board about this big, 15 lines. First person to get 15 right wins. That was it. That was the original rules of Pictionary. So I haven't told that story. This is great. I'm having fun. How about you guys? This is
All right, great.
I'm loving this. And so I do the play test, and it's successful. I was always wondering, was it just drinking beer with my buddies that made it fun? I don't know. Well, apparently not. Apparently it was. So now I need partners, right? So for me, I know what I'm good at, and I acknowledge what I'm not good at. I think as an inventor and a creator, and the creative side of me is always on. The business side of me, even though that's what I went to college for, it doesn't shine. It just doesn't. I'm okay with that. And so I got two partners. The first was a graphic artist. Again, everything's done by hand. And Mr. Pictionary can't draw. I have no skills at color. But my first partner was a graphic artist. My second partner was the guy that could fill in the blanks for the business side. The number one reason startups fail, it's not because of lack of money. It's because the entrepreneur thinks they can do it all. I mean, that's been drummed home to me 100 times. So I've got these two partners. We had nothing in common, except here's what the partners had. One, we all had different skills, right? So I found partners that had different skills than me. So you need to do that. But you know what? You can go online, you can find somebody to do your books, you can find somebody to do the graphics. So I didn't have that option, but that's okay too. They shared my passion and my vision. When they saw me talking about Pictionary, they got excited and they wanted to come on board. So I didn't have to cajole them. I go, here's my idea. It was like, here's my idea. What do you think? Yeah, they're in. But the intangible, the third one, and to me it's the most important and the hardest to identify, is we shared the same values. They were good guys. They were honest guys. I could trust them. I could count on them. And this is what I needed in partners. And so my intuition, as soon as I met both of them, it was, okay, these are the right guys to be my partners. So that was the piece of the puzzle that made this little engine go, without question. Let's see. So now we've got the partners. We've got $35,000 investment. We've got to produce 1,000 games. Now, I'm a little envious of you guys. So when you're creating or inventing something, you go online. I don't mean to, say it so whatever, but there was no internet. So we needed to produce 1,000 games. Well, the only way to do it back then was the yellow pages. Anybody remember?
Yeah.
The yellow page, the big, it was about this big, weighed 40 pounds. Comes to well, let's see, we need boxes. I literally opened up. Oh, I'm almost there to that story. We're getting there. But that one is magic to me. That picture is absolute magic. So, well, I'll get right to it then. So I needed boxes. So I found a box maker in the yellow pages, pencils, dies, cubes, markers, everything. And we had 9 different companies supplying us with parts, all to my apartment. So I couldn't take a pee without stepping on a game piece. But that was okay. That was more than okay. I was having a ball. But the pictures that Laura put up, the major problem that we had to overcome, and I'm saying that now because you had an obstacle you had to overcome. I was pissed off. There's no obstacle. It was terrible. The cards came from the printer 8 days before the launch. Instead of 500 cards 1,000 times for 1,000 games, they came stacks of 1,000. We had to hand sort the 1,000 games, 500,000 game cards, 500,000 cards. It's like, I've done the math, 9,652 decks of cards, throw them in the middle of the room, mix them up, and then pull out decks of cards from there. I mean, it was like terrible. I mean, it was the worst thing that could possibly happen 6 days before the launch. But, looking back, right? So those pictures, what we ended up doing is went to Nordstrom, moved all the furniture out of my apartment into my bedroom, and clearly I didn't own much stuff because it fit just fine. There it is. Yeah. So those are the shoe boxes, man. From Nordstrom. Notice, I don't know, anybody drink Rainier beer? Maybe not. That was the beer we all drank. There's pizza boxes. But beer and pizza, that's all we did. So we put up those tables in that zigzag fashion, and one card in one card in two, and hand collated for 16 hours a day, 6 days. We got it done. We figured out though, we figured out about halfway through that if we just get rid of all those big, wide Nordstrom boxes and just use the card boxes that they were going to come in, we could double the number of cards. I mean, it was like one of those moments. You should have just paying a little more attention. Well, just figured it out as we went along, as did everything. I didn't know. Again, I wasn't an inventor. Everything I'm telling you, everything about this process was one step in front of the other, using my instincts, using my intuition to make it all work. I had no idea from one day to the next. And for me, I love that. I love the not knowing. I love waking up going, what's going to happen today? And that was the Pictionary. The first 2 years of Pictionary, every day was not knowing what was going to happen. We got the job done. And then just quick side. So we knew we could, the partners, right? This terrible moment. We've all had them, where all of a sudden the world's coming to an end because of this. And this was our world coming to an end, except we got it done. So we knew that we could rely on each other. We knew that we could get creative and fix any problem. And we'd bonded like never before. We overcame this obstacle, this demon together, and we knew we could trust each other. And that set us on the path to the future endeavors and the future times when we would have to rely on each other to get things done.
Rob, that's kind of one of the things we always talk about too when we're guiding inventors is building your dream team. And it sounds like you had the dream team. You had guys that you knew well, you trusted them, and I think one of your key points too here is they had skills that you didn't have.
Right.
So that is just like amazing to me. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. One of the things, as I was reading your book too, Rob, is how you did your market research. That's always a stumbling block for people because they think that they have to go out and get a company to do that. And you guys just pulled it up by your bootstraps and did it. Can you tell us a little bit about how you did your early market research?
Put the game under my arm, typed up the rules, called my friends and said, you're going to play a new game. It was getting our hands dirty every day. We'd get together with 6 people, 7 people, literally would put the game on the table with the rules that we had devised. We thought were good, but we weren't sure. Said, go play. And we watched. And people would just play. We gave them beer and pizza, so it didn't cost us that much. But we'd take notes and we'd listen. So where they would stumble, we'd go, okay, we got to fix that. We'd fix it. Next day, we'd get 6 new friends and we'd go play. 6 new. So we just kept hands-on. We just kept testing and testing and testing. And it was bootstrapping at its finest. But it gave it instant feedback. There was no reports to write up. There was no, what do you think? It was like, oh, that guy's not having fun. Why not? Let's ask him when we're done. Went right to us. We knew instantly what worked and what didn't. And that got us to the final set of rules. It became the game.
Didn't that give you a lot of insight too as to how to market, the product once you're out as to really what's going to appeal to people, what's going to push their button, what's going to click for them, because it's, you know, the way I sit with Pictionary, because, you know, our family played it all the time, and it was more than just playing a game together. It was kind of that magic interaction, you know, that you have with people.
Yeah.
Did you find that when you were doing this kind of, you know, market research, and I remember you saying in your book too, you did it out in restaurants and,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, all kinds of things where you would get that feedback.
Oh, by that, that was the selling part, the marketing part. We'd literally go to a local restaurant, open up the game, and just start playing. What are you doing? Oh, we're just playing this new game. You want to play? They'd sit down, they'd have fun. Then we go, oh, by the way, we're selling it right next door, and I'm the inventor. Oh, that's fun. And they would go buy the game. The 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 huge switch for us was, to your point, Laura, was we always thought Pictionary was a drawing game. That's how we marketed. Get the pencil in their hand. They'll know how to play. They'll have a ball. But guess what? People hate drawing. People hate drawing. We didn't realize that. They want to have fun first before they're comfortable. And so I would stand at the bottom of the escalator at Nordstrom, 16 hours a day for weeks on end, demonstrating the game. That was our huge marketing point. Get the pencil in their hand, get them to see, get them to play. But we weren't quite getting the sales that we thought we would. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? And that's when it hit me. And a complete switch. Pictionary is a guessing game. It's not a drawing game. That was the big pivot. That was the big change. And it was easier to get people to guess a cat than draw a cat. And that got them to think. That got them to play. Then we got the pencil in their hand. So it was just looking at the exact same thing from a different angle.
You know, another thing too is you mentioned that you would demonstrate this at the bottom of the escalator, you know, at Nordstrom's. How did you get to Nordstrom's? Can you kind of share that story with us?
I got to Nordstrom by luck. I called a friend of a friend of a friend.
There you go.
Right.
That's it.
I mean, you got to use what you have. So I don't know how many people down the line. Finally got the appointment with the accessory buyer, and I go in, and we've already sold maybe 300 or 400 games. And this is Nordstrom, for goodness sakes. This is the biggest retailer in the country. And the gal says no. The buyer said no. I wasn't devastated, but I was like pissed. I got to get this sale. Something about this sale, just I knew I had to get it deep down. I mean, you've all had that moment where you go, I'm not going to take no for an answer. And so I was giving her, I'll buy back the product. I'll take it back if you don't sell it. I'll stand at the bottom of the escalator and demonstrate. I will tell your entire staff how to play the game. Anything to get you more profits. That's what it was. It was all about money, right? She didn't really care or support this game guy, but I showed her how she could make more money. She took a shot. She took 12 games per 6 stores. That's 72 games. By far the biggest sale we'd ever had.
That's amazing. And, you know, for everybody that's listening, you know, that still, even though Rob's talking about, you know, this was back in mid-80s, 1980s, that's still true today. You know, that you got to get out there. You got to get out and talk to people. You talk your way into stores. You know, I remember when I was putting my product out, I mean, I almost got arrested, you know, because I was like stalking mothers and their, you know, little girls in parking lots at Walmart, you know, trying to get their feedback and everything. But you really got to get out there. And Rob, I think you really show that point. There's so many things in your book that you talk about, you know, that we can't get to tonight. But let me, if I can, I'd like to kind of fast forward a little bit here to when you had your first licensing opportunity. Because when I looked at that, I thought, wow, you turned it down. And how gut-wrenching that must have been. What was that like, your first time and really kind of getting a big break here?
Uh, so what happened was in Seattle, we sold 8,600 games that first year, literally out of the trunk of my car.
Yeah.
But by the beginning of 86, all the big game companies were hearing about us. But more importantly to us, we couldn't fund our growth anymore. We were running out of runway. A competition was coming in, so we had to license. That was our only way forward. It wasn't giving up control, but it was making our ability to scale. So we went to, the first company was Worlds of Wonder, the Teddy Ruxpin people, and the guy asked one of the defining moments and the defining questions of the entire experience. And I didn't know it at the time. And he asked, do you want a game company or do you want to make money? And I'm thinking, one and the same, right? I get a big game company, I'll make a lot of money. But he pointed out, they'll pay for the manufacturing, the marketing and distribution, and we get a royalty. We get a little payment for each game. No overhead. That resonated. We didn't do a deal with them, but it changed everything from, wait a minute, I don't have a game, I have a brand. I've got something different here. That was the huge switch. So we wound up with a deal with Milton Bradley, biggest game company in the world. They gave us everything we wanted, except they wouldn't give us packaging control because they wanted to change our baby. They wanted to change the package. They want to change the rules. They want to change the words. And they said, well, sell more games. No, you won't. It doesn't meet with our vision of the game. It doesn't meet with what we know is right. So here I am. I'm 26 years old. I'm making $500 a month, and I'm driving 1985 Monarch. All I have to do is sign this piece of paper, and I'm rich. Didn't do it. I was willing to go back to waiting tables and sign a deal that didn't give us control of our product because nobody, this was our mantra, nobody is going to love Pictionary as much as we did. They're not going to respect it. They're not going to respect us. So we had to keep control, and we wouldn't sign the deal. We were willing to give it all up, then sign that deal.
You know, that I think that is so important because there's a lot of people that do want to license their product. And sometimes when they do, they just kind of sit back and feel like, okay, now it's in somebody else's hands. But you've really shown that that's really not how you have to do it. You were very much an integral part of keeping your vision going, which kept the strength, you know, of the game. So I think that's a point that really needs to be driven home to everybody, to the inventors as they're going forward is, like Rob said, nobody's going to care as much about your product as you do. So you have to keep that quality control, you know, in mind at all the times. Absolutely. So Rob, I know we've got people with a lot of questions, and Courtney, is this a good time to kind of switch over? And Rob, is it all right with you if we switch over to questions? Okay. Courtney, do you want to kind of take it from here?
Great. All right. It looks like we don't have that many questions here. I've got a couple questions that I would like to ask you, Rob. And it looks like Gregory has a question too, which we'll go ahead and unmute Gregory. He has a great question here. All right, Gregory.
Thanks for being here, Rob. It's absolutely amazing story. But I'm curious, how did you set your pricing when you were first starting this out and selling these yourself? How did you determine what to sell them for?
It was very scientific. I'm kidding. We had to sell Pictionary for what the market would bear. Our competition was Trivial Pursuit. They were selling for $30. We wanted to be in the same category as them. We didn't want to sell for more because nobody's going to buy us. We certainly didn't want to sell for less because we needed perceived value to be the same as theirs. And so they were $30. Half of that was $15. That was the wholesale price. We assumed we would be able to lower our production cost when we got into bigger numbers. But the thing was, we set the wholesale price before we knew actually what it was going to cost us to build those first 1,000 games. $22.
Oh.
Imagine how we're feeling knowing we're losing $7 hard cost per game on those first.
Yeah.
Wasn't our time involved, just physically putting together those 1,000 games. And
Oh, wow.
but we had to do it. It was that simple. And if we didn't succeed with 1,000 games, we wouldn't succeed. But we had to play that game, and fortunately, it worked out.
No, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question here from Marcy. Marcy, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
But I am so excited to hear your story, Rob. It's very similar to mine. I invented a board game.
Yeah.
I overturned my entire life to do this game. It's on business ethics. So my question is this: how do you prevent people from stealing your content and knocking off your ideas?
It's tough, right? Because you have to get it out there. So you have to protect yourself legally, trademark your name, copyright your rules. If there's a moving part, a patent, not patent, I can't speak to your invention or other inventions. Get a lawyer or make sure if you need one or not. We had 57 drawing games on the market over the 17 years. And we had Pictionary. And so we had to put it out there. So we were the first, we were the best, and people associated Pictionary with drawing games. And what basically happens though is people don't steal your idea until you're successful, until you've got a good game. If you've got a game and it's really not selling, nobody's going to rip you off. All of a sudden you're selling thousands of games, you're getting traction, people hear about it, they're going to pay attention. So if you get a game that's getting traction, if you get a game that people like, go as hard and fast as you can and be the first.
All right, looks like we got another question from Michael Norwood. Michael, I'm going to go ahead and find you and unmute yourself, and then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Rob. Wonderful story. I was curious, are you applying the same principles in marketing your books as you've done with Pictionary?
Yes, I am. Yeah, the whole Pictionary book, the whole story with the book, I'm having to do it the exact same way, which is I have no idea what I'm doing. And so it's like when I was going to launch the book, it was pre-COVID, so I was going to do the press tours and the launches and the, all the things that you do for a book. Well, guess what? None of that happened. So I had to change everything on what I was going to do. So I had to adapt. I had to figure it out as I went along. And then with everything that was going on socially, with the riots and everything else, all of a sudden now I've got to do it again. So I am practicing what I preach, learning it as I go, hopefully not taking it too seriously, but wanting to sell some books. And so I'm doing things like this. So I'm one foot in front of the other all over again.
Will you tell us just a little bit about your pick packs?
Yeah, what you're talking about is people wouldn't spend $30 readily in 1985. That was like $80 in today's pricing. So we had to figure out how to get little mini games to people. So we packaged a pad of paper, golf pencil, 4 cards, and a rule sheet on how to find us. And we passed out thousands of these. But what it is sampling. And nothing really changed with that. All we had to do and wanted to do was get more pencils, more guessing. And to do it, we had to do it as cheaply and as easily for the consumer to do it. And that's what we did. So if you've got a game, if you've got a product, I'm a big fan of sampling because, you have to give stuff away, but you never know where it's going to lead. You don't have to give away the farm, of course, but sampling. That's why I stood at the bottom of the escalator. That's why I was doing all those demonstrations, all about sampling. So the pick packs, we'd literally throw those anywhere. I mean, they were about this big. And I remember I was at a stoplight and it's in Seattle and it's sunny and the guy next to me is in a convertible. And I go, oh, he should get a pick pack. So I take it like a Frisbee and I wing it over to him and it hits the right side of the head And he looks at me, gets out of his car. Yeah. So I took off. He missed me. But so when you're sampling, be careful. Be careful out there.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Great. All right, we've got another question here from Teresa. Teresa, if you're there, you can go ahead and speak. Hi, Teresa.
Oh, hey there. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoy this. So, yeah, I'm putting together a game. I've never done this before, but it's kind of a cool idea, and I'm not sure how to protect it because I don't think I've seen anything like what I want to do on the market.
Yeah, it's only you can answer the question. What is it you need to protect? Name, obviously, your rules for the copyright, and it's also what can you afford? There's always that issue. But you just protect as much as you can legally. Get the URL, protect that. So do as much as you can from that standpoint. And if you're uncertain, get a lawyer, or at the very least research it online of what you need to do. There's too many people out there that are unscrupulous, and as we just talked about earlier, if you're successful, you have to worry about it. But on the other hand, you've got to get it out there, right? Sarah Blakely from Spanx, she spent a year telling nobody, designing her pantyhose, getting her Spanx ready, and then she brought it out. She was ready to roll. So she did the same thing. She kept it to herself, but at some point, you just got to put it out there, see what happens.
Great. Awesome answer. We've got another really great question, and I actually have this question as well, so I'm glad someone was able to ask this. We have Keith Waters from Tennessee Inventors. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Keith. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Are you continuing to invent? Have you branched out into anything else, or?
No, when we owned Pictionary, we stayed only with Pictionary for 17 years. We had a few other products. I did invent a second game called Think Block, which did okay. Didn't do great, but it was fun. I loved the creative process on that. But since I sold Pictionary in 2001 to Mattel, admittedly, I got to do what nourished me. And that was raise my kids, mentor nonprofits. And I spent 15 years doing that. And I enjoyed the heck out of myself. In the last 7 years or so, I've been on a spiritual journey. And now I'm doing this and the book. So I'm plenty engaged. But I didn't really feel that I had to prove anything and I had to create something else. But now that I've created the book, my juices are going again. So who knows what's going to happen. But it's been a pretty spectacular life.
Great. All right, we've got another great question from Margaret. Margaret, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Hi, Margaret.
Go ahead and swallow. I've ordered your book, so I look forward to that arriving. And I apologize for that bark. Question, if you were to get into the game business today, would you go board game or card game?
Oof. Well, I would consider a card game now because that's where everybody's at. That's where the consumer seems to be at, or what they want to buy. And the other part about the card games, it's easier to get into. If you don't have an option, then you come out with a board game. But if I was to do it now, I would lean more towards a card game. That's where people are making money. That's what's getting traction. And the barriers to entry on either of those now is almost nothing. I mean, that's just crazy. You go online, you find your prototype, and you build it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kickstarter, I think it's fabulous that you can do anything now, and you can try anything, and you only have to do 100, 200. You don't have to do thousands anymore to see if it works, if it's going to get any traction, see if people are going to like it. So I think huge advantage right now.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Laura, are we good to continue doing some more questions?
I think we've got just a couple more minutes. Do you have some more questions in there, Courtney?
Absolutely. We've got a lot of questions for you, Rob.
I'm good. We can go over. That's fine.
Are we okay? Okay, Rob. Thank you.
All right. We got another question here from Alex. go ahead and unmute you, Alex, and then you're good to ask your question.
Yeah, so I just had a general question. When Pictionary started to take off, did you get invited on to any nationally televised news programs to talk about the game, and how'd that go and how'd that feel if that happened?
Oh my goodness, it felt amazing. I'm a waiter from Spokane, Washington. I was on CNN, talk shows. There was this local TV show, Northwest Afternoon, that I grew up watching, and I'm on the show for Pictionary. That was so incredible, heady. It was like, oh my gosh, that was very, very cool stuff. Yeah, it was like an amazing ride. We wound up hiring in '87 Linda Pisano. She did all the Trivial Pursuit marketing. So she got Trivial Pursuit to where it was. She took us on and did the same thing with us. And so with her assistance and her help, I was all over the place. Oh, just amazing stuff.
So what, just another quick question if I can. So what was the growth rate? Was it kind of like a hockey stick, or how long was it gradual, and then how quickly did it take off? Just how did that work out?
Pretty incredible. So yeah, I mean, it was like we went from 8,600 games out of the trunk of my car, and then we wound up doing a licensing deal. We didn't do Mattel, we didn't do Milton Bradley. We did another joint venture, and we went 350,000 games the second year. Then we went to 3 million games.
Wow.
Being junior in 1987. No, we started in '85. By 1987, 2 years later, 3 million games. We're now launching in Europe. And then in 1988, we did 11 million games
Man,
in the US.
pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. Another couple of million in Europe. And the numbers were just staggering for what we were doing. We couldn't print them fast enough.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
It was, but it was all timing.
Yeah.
What's the best part, or what is one of the keys to success of businesses? And if you look at them, it's about timing. If we had come out a year earlier, who knows? Maybe another game would have been popular. Maybe we would have made it. A year later, definitely another game would have come out and could have been. So our timing, for whatever reason, was absolutely perfect to come out when we did.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Hey, Rob, I've got a quick question for you. Do you have a favorite animal that you like to draw?
Aardvark? Yes.
Okay.
I autograph all the books with an aardvark. Yeah, it's just so symbolic of who I am, how I succeeded, how I got started. So yeah, I'm going to go with the aardvark.
That's great. Well, we have a question here from Marcy, and her question was, how do you get the autographed book?
Go to robangel.com, and somewhere down the page, there'll be a button to push, get your autographed, limited edition autographed Pictionary book, Game Changer.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm still saying Pictionary. I can't say Game Changer. Pictionary comes out first.
Of course.
I appreciate it, buying it. If you do, if you don't, that's great. I'm always appreciative of people, putting up their hard-earned money, including for the game, 1985. So I do thank you guys for whatever.
Absolutely.
I think we're coming up against our time limits a little bit here. And I thank you, Rob, so much for being so flexible on your time and sharing it with us. As we're kind of wrapping tonight, one of the things that, I think is so important for people to understand from someone like you, that you've done it, you've ridden that roller coaster, you've started and you finished all the way, through, and it didn't happen overnight, right? But, to really launch a product, and a successful product, takes really good business sense, and, reaching down to, those pulling up parts of your inner self that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
So, what kind of advice that could you give to everybody that's kind of on the business side? And then also, what kind of advice would you give them as kind of life advice as they're going through this? themselves?
From a business side, what I would tell you is to surround yourself with good people, right? I know everybody says that, but you really have to surround yourself with people you trust, people that you relate to, people that you can count on, because it's liberating. It's freeing. When you're covering your ass, when you're worried about what somebody's thinking, where your ego is involved and their ego is involved, that's when things start getting dicey. So from a business standpoint, make sure that people can do the skills and have the skills that you need, but also get the people you trust. I think that's always been one of my big life lessons. And for my life lesson, it's trust your instincts. It's that little voice. It's that thing that tells you right from wrong. Even though your head tells you something, your instincts, your gut, your heart will tell you something different. And you have to go with it, because there's always imperfect knowledge. You'll never have all the answers. Even launching my book, launching Pictionary, doing anything, I didn't have all the answers, but I knew when something was right, and I felt when something was wrong. And from that, my life was permeated. From that, that's how I've lived my life. And I'm usually pretty okay, and I'm usually pretty right with that. So just trust yourself, and you'll be okay.
That is just excellent, excellent advice. You know, I again want to thank you, Rob, you know, so much. We have so many people that start out with an idea and just have no idea, you know, where to go. So, you know, we're lucky nowadays, we have these inventor groups all over the country. And, you know, we really do help them from idea to, oh, do you need a prototype? If you do need a prototype, how do you build it? Out of popsicle sticks? You know, what do you do? So, you know, there is a lot of guidance out, you know, a lot more than when you all had to start, you know, in the 80s. It was, like you said, it was yellow pages and word of mouth.
Yeah,
but again, I want to, you know, thank you very much.
To that point,
I'm sorry.
can I say just one quick point to that?
Okay, please. Yeah.
So from an inventing standpoint, I absolutely believe the fact that I didn't have all those tools at my fingertips, that was one of the other reasons Pictionary was successful. Sometimes you've got to get away from the easy way out. Sometimes you got to get away from pushing a couple of buttons and getting something done. I mean, we got our hands dirty every day because we had to. This wasn't like, let's do this on purpose. We had to, but it got us involved. We knew what was going on. I mean, every one of those first 1,000 games had our fingerprints on them, literally, right? And so when you're designing or you're creating, free your mind, get away from the internet. And that's when great things happen to me. Too much input, I get confused. I mean, with the board. So who remembers the original blue box, the long rectangle box, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows the yellow one now, the short yellow. So how that was invented was everybody was doing four-fold boards, Trivial Pursuit and everybody else, or the Monopoly style, which was two-fold. We wanted to come up with something different. We couldn't figure it out. Terry, Gary, and myself, my partners were screaming and yelling at each other. So one afternoon, in the middle of an argument or this discussion, I went and sat at my desk. I cleared my mind. I was overwhelmed. And as I'm sitting there and I'm not paying attention, I notice a piece of paper sitting on my desk and I pick it up. I'm not thinking of anything. And I'm playing with this piece of paper just to keep my mind off what's going on. All of a sudden it folds on itself in thirds. And I kind of look at it and I go, oh my goodness, this is it. So I call Gary and Terry over. They come over, they take a look. Gary, the graphic artist, took his ego out of this discussion. And he looks at it and he goes, ooh, it's going to require a rectangle box. I love it. That's it. Let's do it. That's how the box got designed, from the inside out, for me not paying attention, for me not caring about what was going on. And by Gary taking his ego out of the creative process and saying, this is what's best for Pictionary, let's do it.
Wow.
That's so amazing. Courtney, before we kind of start to wrap, I just want to make sure that there's no other questions or anything down there that we need to get to. Because while we have Rob here, I'm going to hang on to him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we've got lots and lots of questions. So everyone, I'm sure we'll be on here as long as you guys want to stay on.
Rob, how about you answered like how about 2 more questions?
3.
3. All right. Yes. Okay. Let's go. We're rolling.
I may have to get a beer though.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
We've got a great question here from Todd. Todd, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. All right.
I just fireside chat with Rob Angel. I just noticed that. I'm like,
Isn't that cool?
really cool.
Hello, Rob, from a fellow Washingtonian.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Wow.
Yeah. So when you licensed to Mattel, did they pursue you first, or did you actively pursue them? And how did that all come together? Because a lot of us are looking for ways to license to other companies.
For the licensing part, it was it was a joint venture for with the Trivial Pursuit salesman, the guy who produced every Trivial Pursuit, and the company that manufactured every Trivial Pursuit. They came after us because we were successful. That's why we had the leverage to ask for what we asked for. We got minimum guarantees. We got marketing spend. We got to control the packaging, which was the most important part. Prime directive. We have to control the packaging. And nobody would love our Pictionary as much as we would. So the deal was put together from strength. And as we said earlier, the last thing we could do is walk away, because our futures, our financial future was wrapped up in their efforts. So if we're not paying attention to them, they're not going to pay attention to us. And who knows what would have happened with Pictionary.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd. Good question.
I mean, we treated Pictionary like a human. We treated it like it was part of us. And so whatever's good for our baby was good for us. We didn't go after money. If we were going after money, we would have signed the deal with Milton Bradley, because it was a lot of money for that licensing deal, but it wasn't the right deal. It wasn't the right fit. And they didn't have our best interests at heart, so we couldn't trust them, so we didn't sign it.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you, Rob. We've got a question. The name here is Jay Lindsay. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. You can go ahead and ask your question, sir.
Hi, my name is Jamie. My question is, tell us more about how you retained control of the product as you developed your agreement with Hasbro.
Yeah, nobody saw the value in anything but the game. So everybody was short-sighted. And this is when it dawned on us, we don't have a board game. We have a brand. We have a brand. Everybody wanted to license the board game, and we said, okay. So we had the leverage because of our sales and because of the competition between the two big companies to get what we wanted. But more importantly, or as importantly, we retained the rights to everything else. So they did the game, but we got to do television, confectionery. We were in control of advertising and promotions with them as well. So we made a lot of money and did a lot of entrepreneurial things outside of the board game. That was just one part, a big part, but that was just one part of the whole thing. And we wouldn't give up the control of the game. I mean, there were many times where we had the opportunity to do a big deal, and what would have happened, we would have lost control. Those first 10,000 games that we ordered, so we did the 1,000, and then we did 10,000 games. We're selling in Seattle. We've got about 8,000 left. This is about September. We get a call from JCPenney. They call us up and they say, hey, we'd like to order 8,000 games. That's all our games. This is awesome. We just sold our inventory. But then we started thinking about it. What if they take those 8,000 games and they put them in a warehouse and don't distribute them to their stores? What if they don't pay us? What if they decide to ship them back? We couldn't take the risk. We couldn't control those 8,000 games. So we said no, and we kept slogging it out, and we sold only in Seattle. We only sold to local stores. Literally, if I could get to them in my car, that's our market. That's what we sold to. If I couldn't, we didn't do business with them. We had to control the product. I mean, we did store checks, which when the game is out and we go into a department store or a toy store or wherever, and if we didn't like it was where it was displayed, one of us would act as the lookout, and then I would rearrange the game department. And I put Pictionary at eye level, and I'd put Trivial Pursuit at the bottom. But we were just doing that stuff all the time. Anything to get a sale, anything to keep control of our product.
Wonderful. Great question.
So did they push back?
Of course they did.
And how could you leverage just on the basis of your sales? Just don't do the deal?
You know, it's weird. I mean, Lindsay, it's a question that I don't know. We've asked ourselves that before. We only sold about 10,000 games in Seattle. This wasn't like national distribution. This wasn't like we had this mammoth organization that they were going to buy into. They just were buying our brand. They were buying our name that they thought they could leverage. And it gave us leverage. And why it was that way, man, I wish I knew. But we stayed true to ourselves. We stayed true to what we knew we needed. And I think that helped as well. I know that helped as well, to stay true to our vision.
Did you have the same sort of good relationship with your legal help that you had with your two partners?
Yeah, a lawyer became our best friend. Again, surrounding myself with the right people at the right time. And we even, I think it's in the book. We couldn't afford to hire a lawyer to do a purchase and sale agreement or do a partnership agreement. We couldn't afford that. We had to put all our money into Pictionary. So we, as the three partners and the fourth, the financial guy, we got together and we figured out who gets what, shook on it, trusted each other, and went our way. We were in business for about a year before we actually did a partnership agreement. We just had faith and trust in each other. And of course, when it came time to physically put the deal down on paper, we did without question.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, we have one more question. Should we ask that last final question here? Got Nick. Well, that's okay. No worries. I can totally ask your question for you. His question is, if I have a great game idea, do I need to reach out to a design team or create a prototype myself and reach out to a company? How do I get my idea noticed?
Ooh, like 3 questions in there. Well, prototyping is easy. It costs you money, but it's easy. You start figuring out what you want, get it done that way, and physically get the game, physically put it under your arm, or physically put it online and see what happens. But there's no getting around. You've got to play the game with people. You've got to get it in people's hands. Just putting something online doesn't get it done all the time. Certainly it can. But I'm a big believer in sampling, getting the game in people's hands to find out if people are going to like it or not. And you don't have to spend a lot of time and a lot of money to get it done, but you've got to give it a shot. I mean, that's the whole thing. You've got to try it. You know, there'll only be a success if you get started. Finding your aardvark is what I call it. So for the book, for instance, I had, see, there she is.
There it is.
But see, that's how good I am. I cover up my own name, but it's a great jacket, right? Well, what happened was I couldn't figure out how to do it. The publisher couldn't get it right. I went on 99 designs and I called them up or did one of their programs, and it was easy, it was cheap, it was simple, and I got a great design. I mean, I love this book cover, this jacket. So by using what's available to you, you can get things done.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. And with that too, Rob, one of the simplest ways too for everybody that's listening is join your Inventors Associations. There's at least one in every state now. So, a lot of times we'll have people coming into our organization and they try out their ideas on us, in a private, safe arena with the closed doors, and, try it out on us first. And that really does help to try it out in the, your really safe arena. And Rob, you didn't have that back then. There weren't inventors organizations back then. So you were pretty much on your own, but
we had each other, right? It's exactly what I'm talking about is talking about mentors.
Yes.
Why invent the wheel? Everybody's a mentor. There's 25, 30 people, whatever it is. Everybody has something to contribute to each other. So these inventor groups are fabulous to learn, to grow, to get new insight. And the other thing for me is collaboration. Working inside a bubble is hard for me. I need to talk. I need to bounce ideas off of somebody else. So the inventors groups is collaboration, and that's where a lot of magic happens. And a lot of things you wouldn't ever think about. Somebody could take you in a whole new different direction, look at something from a different angle, and maybe that's the difference between success and real success.
Yeah, could be. Thank you very much. Rob, if you're ever out in Arizona, we want you to come out to our group, So as soon as the dust settles with all this COVID and everything, we're going to get you to come out here and talk, personally sit down with us, and we'll just have a great time.
Absolutely love to.
Great. Okay. Courtney, do you have any other questions or anything before we wrap up? And, Rob, thank you. We've gone, quite a bit over time. It's been really fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Okay. Rob, do you have any, kind of final parting words before we close up shop here?
I think I just wrapped up 17 years of my life. And, it's what I tell people all the time, including myself, that I don't always live up to, is don't overthink everything. Just get to it. Just get started. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. That's part of the process. Turn around, go a different direction. So there's no right way to invent. There's no right way to start a business. There's no one way to be successful. Just do what you feel is right. Do what you know. Plow forward and see where it takes you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Rob, thank you so very much. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight. And I want to thank everybody that's on tonight. This has just been really great, Rob, to be able to sit here and just chat with you. Next time I am going to actually have a fireside behind me, with like real flames and stuff. But anyway, thank you all very much for tonight. And Rob, we'll catch up with you later. I'll be actually contacting you about another item here in the next couple of days or so. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. You all have a nice and safe evening. Stay healthy out there, and we'll see you again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Take care and good luck. Be safe.